Live. I am live on the webinar and I'm live on YouTube. Here we go. Ready or not, here we go. Thank you, sir. All right, perfect. No, we're up and running. Sorry.
Ready for me?
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, bye-bye. Cool. Good. We're live. We will get a take with Mr. Whitmore a few minutes.
Okay.
So please let him.
He did say he was going to join us.
All right, so let's see here. Oh, wow. So Lee is not online. You don't know his.
Yeah, I got a cell here. Yep. 460-0522. Oh wait, sorry. Yeah, that's right. 460-0522. Got him in here twice. I'm a faster reader than Lee, so we'll get through this.
Works. I'm good with it.
Okay.
I just find it hard to believe that they're not wanting this panel, the solar array, if they're.
So if you go to the.
That doesn't make sense.
I know, it's just what Lee said to me, that he had talked to him and they were not really for it, or not really all for it or something. I don't know.
That doesn't make sense.
That's
just like.
What's the whole point, right?
Yeah, that's it. Why in the world are they even talking?
Hey there, how are you?
Good.
Glad you made it.
Waiting on like one minute. I got hung up in traffic on 81.
Oh, wow, surprise.
Yeah, surprised.
I'm lucky you got here.
I may be waiting in line to get gas.
No. Everybody else is.
That's a new thing.
Yes, indeed.
I went to BP today. There was only one other person in the parking lot over at Hilltop on the way over to BV.
But we have some sense in this county, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It isn't bad. Isn't that bad what I've seen in the county? I mean, there's some gas stations that don't have gas.
Right.
Gas station in Fairfield was 8, and I think it was a couple of them somebody talked about was 8, but it's not.
Then you go to planning commission.
Opportunity to check the prices up there. I know that.
Yeah, well, they did that.
Yeah.
Went up 45 cents a gallon in Fairfield overnight. So.
Then from there, you go down, you scroll down, and you go to agendas.
Oh, nice.
And then you click on it. Once you click on agendas, it should come up. Yes.
It's just the three of us today.
Well, Lee's supposed to be getting online. He had shoulder surgery, so he can't drive, so he's trying to do it from his place.
And if that does not work, I just sent you agenda and a link via email.
You guys get a chance to read over the
Well, I
minutes?
sent the agenda via email.
I have one little correction. I don't know if it's nitpicking
I
or
have
not.
I was gonna say I've got a picky one too.
Page 5, maybe.
Mine had to do with when I asked about the question about the savings or how we would benefit. He
Oh,
didn't
right.
just say a savings; he said a 10% saving. Like he was very specific.
Hey, don't
Where's your
mistake it.
correction?
Yeah.
We have a few
Your
minutes.
correction on page 5.
Yeah, just. And we'll.
And will
Yeah, you weigh that.
will landowner and will determine if that is possible. Gotcha.
Include that on my behalf if you don't mind.
Mhm.
Ms. Hennis, if you'll just make those corrections on that and then I'll get those after the meeting.
Yep.
And Mr. Lucas, I already noted that you were here. I'm sorry I put you on as absent.
I wasn't here last meeting. I missed last meeting.
Okay, you did.
Yes, I did miss last meeting. It was,
Okay,
it was March. I
One
was
before that.
thinking about.
gotcha.
Yeah, that was, over town. You're 100% correct.
Yeah, you might as well see what it does.
Everything kind of blurs together.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I'm sitting here and I thought about that and I went, I wasn't here last meeting. I was out of town last meeting. March I got hung up in traffic, couldn't get here.
Apparently Lee's having trouble getting on.
Oh,
It should
You
be
probably-
L. McLaughlin
You got
at
good in-
Rockbridge County.
How's his internet?
So your
service?
email
He's
address.
good. He's got BARC now.
He's got it now.
Yep. We used to have these
L.
Zoom,
McLaughlin at
virtual Zoom meetings with a shooting group. And they
RockbridgeCounty.gov.
literally would be up in a tree with an umbrella in the rain trying to talk with us. So it's good now.
Yeah, good. Once you get it, it's awesome.
Changes things, that's for sure.
How's that going on the sales side, housing sales side? Is that something you get asked a lot?
All the time. Yeah, I mean, that's number one question. If you don't have internet service,
They don't want to talk to you.
I mean, you just can't because they have kids. They got to be online.
Amazing. The dark ages to the 21st century.
Here he is, Lee McLaughlin.
Yes, I see you and I will promote you. Yep, I think I got you. So you're on here. Let me promote you to. Let me put the phone down. I'm not going to hang up, but let me put the phone down until I can figure out what's going on here. All right, you should be on there. Can you see us on your end? And I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okay, I can see you. Can you, I don't know if you can see me or not. I don't see a picture.
We
Picture
cannot
of me.
see you, but we can hear you, thankfully. So that's half the battle.
Okay, let me see, is there, so I start video?
I'll do it.
Okay, there we are.
Here he is.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, I'm hanging up the phone.
Sorry about that. We had a little technical difficulties here, but we're up and running.
Okay. Okay, are we ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's rock and roll here. We'll call to order the Planning Commission meeting, Rockbridge County Planning Commission. Call for the roll call. Commissioner Member Hennis,
Here.
Commissioner Member Himes is not here.
Absent.
That is correct.
Commissioner Member Lucas,
Here.
Commissioner Member Whitmore,
here.
and Mr. McLaughlin is online, thankfully. Okay, while the room is open to the public due to the size of the meeting room and social distancing requirements, no more than 30 attendees will be allowed into the room at one time per the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia Executive Order number 63. All persons over the age of 10 that do not have a precluding medical condition are asked to wear a face covering. We'll hold the citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. At that time, the public is welcome to make comments unrelated to any of the public hearings. Comments related to a public hearing should be held until that item is discussed and the public hearing is open. We'll do our best to take citizen comments remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One, to join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. This link is available at the county website to copy into the address line on your browser, or you can join by telephone. You may dial in to any one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom participant, meeting participant, you'll use the raise your hand feature, and you can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window, or press *9 if you're calling by telephone. So at this time, we'll proceed with the meeting. We'll go to citizen comments. And I'll remind everyone that in addition to participating by Zoom or telephone, written citizen comments have been solicited for receipt by way of email, US mail, and the drop box located in the front entrance of the county administration building, and by way of email. I will now open the floor to any citizen comment for any items not on the agenda tonight. Staff, do we have anybody physically present to speak?
I believe we do, but before we get started, I would like to introduce the newest employee for the Office of Community Development, Mr. Chris Musso, as in attendance. He started Monday of this week as the zoning technician. So with that, I'd just like Chris to introduce himself and just tell him briefly about his background.
Yeah, hello, I'm happy to be here. My name is Chris Musso. I'm originally from New York. I'm the new Rockbridge County zoning technician. I spent 6 years in the Navy after high school, went on to get a bachelor's degree in geography with a minor in urban studies that dealt with planning. For a time, I worked as a GIS technician for a couple of years before this, and now I'm here in Rockbridge County, and I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future. Thank you.
Welcome, Chris. We are thankful. I know Chris is available and excited that you're here as well as Brandy, I'm sure. So welcome. Okay, so we'll move on back to the meeting. Do we have anybody physically present to speak?
I think we do have some people that want to speak during the citizen comments. With that, yes, this would be the appropriate time. And this does pertain to an item that's on the agenda, but of course the item on the agenda is not a bona fide public hearing, so I think it's appropriate to do this during citizen comments. With that, I'll get out of the way.
At this time, we'll also ask that comments be limited to about 3 minutes, please, and please state your name and your magisterial district, please. Thank you.
Matt Paxton, and I'm from the Central District. I guess it is still, isn't it? And I'm very appreciative of having a chance to come in. I came to just briefly comment on the current study of an electric facility at Fairfield, their solar power facility. And just have a couple of brief comments. I am in favor of trying to develop renewable power sources, and I'm all for developments that go that way. But I do think that this has to be carefully done. I think if a community doesn't do it carefully, it can be a very negative factor. And I'm not enthusiastic about the proposed installation at Fairfield. This parcel between two major highways and the interstate and Highway 11 seems to be unsuitable, I think. It's a beautiful track, highly visible from both highways. Those screening is now proposed, as I understand. I don't believe it would be possible to really screen this from public view. It could become a major eyesore. I think the county should be particularly concerned about this because of the negative impact it would have on tourism, the county's most important industry. I believe the town of Fairfield got its name from the fine tracts of farmland around it and surrounded, quite possibly including this very tract. if this proposal goes through, I'm going to suggest to my friends who are residents of Fairfield that they change the name of that, that town from Fairfield to Electric Grid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paxton.
Thank you. Let me see. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on citizen comments? There's no one else physically present. Let me go through the list here online. If you would like to make a comment during citizen comments, please use the raise hand button now. Not seeing any hands being raised. Let me go to the question and answer. There are no questions. There are no open questions. So it does not appear anyone else is here for citizen comments.
All right, then we will move on to approval of the April 14th minutes. Any comments, corrections?
There were a couple of minor corrections, which I told Brandy we would submit to her. They were just two little things. So I make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented with those two small corrections.
We have a motion, a second.
Second.
We have a motion, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries for the approval of the minutes. We'll now move on to the Board of Supervisors report. Staff?
Yes, sir. So with the two action items as far as the board report, one, the TCO met at the beginning of this month at their normal May meeting. That was pertaining to the Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC, which I'll give you an update, during that agenda item for this. The other item that was reviewed and approved by the Tourism Corridor Overlay, the TCO, was a proposed drive-through for Lexington Coffee Roasters on North Lee Highway. It's a fairly, the improvements include a turn lane that comes off the existing entrance, of course, the menu board itself, the drive-through window itself, and then the exit of it is actually behind the building, comes back around to the left-hand side of the building and out the same entrance. So we were excited to see those two projects. As far as Board of Supervisors report, on April 26, 2021, the board, it was a 2-2 motion that failed to approve the BARC laydown yard. So essentially on April 26, 2021, that motion or that special exception for BARC was denied. However, on May 10th, 2021, Monday of this month, a motion was made to reconsider that earlier motion, and that was approved for 4-0. And so BARC successfully obtained a special exception permit, a temporary special exception permit until 2023 currently. So that's my board reports.
All right, moving on to the first agenda on the Dominion Energy Glasgow and the Dominion Energy at the Glasgow Highway, the application for special exception permit, expansion and balcony fall substation, the public utility in the ag and general uses, A2 zoning. And we're just in continuance on that from last month.
Yes, and if I could ask the Kimberly Horn team or the Dominion Energy team to raise their hand as attendees, or whoever would like to speak on Kimberly Horn's behalf and Dominion Power's behalf, if you could raise your hand now. I'm going to do a very brief PowerPoint presentation, get everyone up to speed, and then once I do that, I will turn over to the Kimberly Horn team and Dominion team. With that, bear with me here. All right, I believe everyone can see my screen. This is a Dominion Power application for a public utility in the agricultural and general use district. That's the A2 district. As far as the surrounding zoning goes, just like to review the surrounding zoning, the area zoning map, the outline, to get everyone oriented, the Dominion tract is outlined in orange and is identified as tax map number 115A-A-1 and consists of 4.05 acres. As far as the existing zoning in the area, the white is the agricultural general use districts, A2. The dark green is the conservation zoning district, C1. And the light green is the agricultural and limited uses district, A2. Again, the site is further identified as 4115 Glasgow Highway. Sort of just a zoomed in version on it to review the special application itself. Dominion Power has made an application for a special exception permit in order to expand the existing Balcony Falls substation. The property is located in the O2 zone and per section A2 zone and per section 603.03-9 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. Public utilities are used by special exception. Mr. Ben Jackson, engineer with Kimberly Horn, has submitted the following plans for the special exception permit. The plans show the limits of the existing substation and the limits of the proposed substation project. The existing footprint consists of approximately 0.38 acres, and the proposed consists of approximately 0.93 acres. Mr. Jackson was unable to attend the meeting. Ms. Shelley Perkay with Kimberly Horn is in attendance this evening. At the May 14th, 2021 meeting, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and it closed the public hearing. This is a continued review, but not a bona fide public hearing. Discussion included the possibility of additional landscaping in order to reduce the visual impacts along Glasgow Highway and surrounding areas, and the material finish of the backbone structure itself. Since that time, since the April meeting, Mr. Jackson has submitted a landscaping plan and additional information on the proposed finish of the backbone structure. For discussion purposes, staff has developed the following proposed condition. Number 1 would be the development of the property 115A-A-1 for which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with the development plan titled Special Exception Plan Balcony Falls Substation dated March 17, 2021 with a revision date of April 1st, 2021. And the landscaping plan prepared by Kimberly Horn titled Dominion Balcony Falls Station, Rockbridge County, Virginia, dated April 27th, 2021. Number 2, the backbone structure associated with the substation to be constructed with dulled galvanized steel. That concludes staff's portion of the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and promote right now, Shelley, can you hear us, ma'am?
Yes, I can.
All right, we can hear you and see you. You do have the ability to share your screen if needed, or I can pull up the plans back on my screen. We appreciate your time this evening. I'll turn the floor over to you.
Absolutely. I would just like to say first, Chris, thank you so much for that presentation. I can actually go ahead and pull my screen up so we are looking at the plans. Chris, can you see that?
Not yet. No. Not yet. No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can see that now.
Wonderful. I do have another person of the Kimberly Horn team here with me. That is Max Chance. So Max, feel free to chime in whenever. So, yep, according to the special exception, we did only have those 2 conditions to meet the landscaping plan and the dulled backbone structures. And I know Dominion is very willing to go ahead and provide that screening and dull the backbones as needed. Other than that, we really didn't have any other additional comments or questions. We are opening the floor to you guys.
So the dulled, Shelley, the dulled finish, that just is taking the shiny new finish and making it look old more quickly. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that is done off-site before the backbones are brought in.
Okay, because I always feel like that is, personally, that does more to mitigate the view shed situation than any other color.
Mm-hmm.
Personally speaking, I think some of the other Nutina things that have been requested in the past actually are stand out just as much as some of the shiny finishes. So I appreciate your suggesting the dulled finish. I think that's a good route to go.
Yep, that's definitely Dominion's preference as well.
I have some questions about, there were 2 retaining walls that were discussed. I think one of them was going to be 8 or 9 feet tall. Just wondering about that. You know, one of them says it's going to be 5 plus or minus 5 feet tall and will be constructed infill, and the other one in a cut. I'm just wondering what that means or what that might look like. You know, 8 or 9 feet, pretty substantial.
It is. So just to give a brief background here, this blue fence, this blue line you're looking at is this existing substation fence. And anything north and northwest of that is the actual expansion area. So we're expanding quite a bit here for a total disturbance right under 1 acre. And as you can see by kind of all those light gray lines, like that is the fall across the site. And on another condition per Dominion's request was that we also keep the existing grades within the substation very close to where they are right now, so that there's no disturbance within during time of construction. So with that said, we are looking at 2 walls, one along this side, which is in a cut condition, and one along this side, which is in a fill. So what that would look like is really not all that different than what you would see from the highway right now, because the majority of the substation will kind of stay at that same grade. And then you will see a little bit of the wall. It'll just go up faster than what it does now.
And what is that wall going to be consisting of? Is that just gray block, or is it poured concrete, or?
The wall that's on this side, I believe, is poured concrete, and the one on this lower side is segmental block.
Okay.
Just a couple of nitpicking comments, since we're talking about aesthetics. We're trying to screen the facility from the highway. In the write-up, it says the walls will be gray or brown. I would think the brown would be would blend better with the natural environment, which would require obviously coloring the concrete on the poured wall. And you know, I'm not sure I was on the side that deemed landscaping necessary, but it's in here. It looks good, but the 2 types of trees chosen kind of look a little exotic, and I assume that's because of the height that they grow to. Looks like the Hollywood juniper is underneath the power lines. Is that why that was chosen versus the typical Leland cypress that's chosen for other screenings?
You know, I'm not entirely sure why they were chosen, but we can definitely change that if the county has a preference. I know Dominion's arborist did meet on site here with Ben Jackson and possibly somebody from the county.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. And I can speak to that. So I did meet the Dominion Power. This is Chris Layden with Rockbridge County. I did meet the Mr. Jackson and the Dominion representative, the arborist for Dominion, and it was explained that it is very limiting of what types of plants they can plant because of the separation, the required separation between the bottom of the line and then the overall planting height. I knew they were very concerned on, and I did not realize it until the meeting that morning, but the overall height of the line is can fluctuate with the amount of power that's going through it. And so obviously if it's hotter, I believe it is a little bit more sag. And then, you know, as far as the use of the electricity as well. So I think that those were the reasons why those plants were chosen.
Do we know if those plants are in any way invasive or?
They're both junipers, style junipers, and I do not believe they are. I cannot answer that 100%, but I do not believe they are. Certainly not like other, you know, invasive species type thing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we'd choose something that would be, but I could definitely confirm that with our landscape architects in the office.
Are there any other questions or comments from the Planning Commission?
No, not for me.
No.
All right. Ms. Parquet, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Parquet, is that correct or close enough?
Close enough, correct. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your input, and we appreciate what you've done to help us get this project moving here.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Okay, back to the Planning Commission for discussion.
I think we're all pretty good, ready to go with this.
All right.
So I make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit for expansion of the existing Balcony Falls substation in the agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district per LDR section 603.03-9, identified as tax map number 115A-A-1, be approved with the following conditions. 1, the development of the property tax map number 115A-A-1 shall be in substantial compliance with the development plan entitled Special Exception Plan Balcony Falls Substation dated March 17th, 2021, with a revision date of April 1, 2021, and the landscaping plan prepared by Kimley Horn entitled Dominion Balcony Falls Substation, Rockbridge County, Virginia, dated April 27th, 2021. And 2, backbone structures associated with the substation shall be constructed with dulled galvanized steel.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on now to the Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC on the North Lee Highway. This is an application for special exception permit for 5 megawatt AC solar project in the agricultural general uses, the A2 zoning. And this as a continued review. And we've already had our public hearing. And so we'll turn it over to staff.
Yes. Thank,
Hey, Chris,
yes.
sorry to interrupt. Mr. Wise posted in the chat, I just want to make sure you were aware of that Hollywood Jupiters are not listed as invasive species.
Perfect. Great. Thank you for that. And thank you, Chris. All right, bear with me here. I'm going to do a brief PowerPoint presentation, bring everybody up to speed. All right, this is a continued review from the last 2 Planning Commission meetings for Dynamic Energy Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC application for a special exception permit for a 5 megawatt, that's AC power solar project, public utility in the agricultural and general use zoning district. Briefly to review the zoning district in the area, the white is agricultural general A2. The yellow is residential R1, general residential R1. The gray is general industrial I1. The darker red is general business B1. The green is C1, which in this case is the Fairfield Elementary School and associated lands with it. And then the pink is the agricultural transitional zone. The Alexander tract is outlined in orange and is identified as tax map number 38-10-A. And is approximately 49 acres per the GIS. The special exception application itself, Mr. Pat Hastings with Dynamic Energy Solutions has made an application for a 5 megawatt AC solar project along North Lee Highway near the village of Fairfield. The property is owned by James G. Alexander Jr. and is located in the agricultural and general use district. Per section 603.03-9 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, public utilities are used by special exception. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 10th, March 10th, 2021. The public hearing was continued until the April 14th, 2021 meeting. At the April 14th, 2021 meeting, the Planning Commission closed the public hearing. The Planning Commission agreed that the plantings along Interstate 81 were acceptable and requested additional photo simulations of plantings closer to Route 11 versus the original plans of the plantings near the wooding fence or near the fence associated with the proposed solar array. There was also discussion on a wooden fence at the Planning Commission meeting, the April Planning Commission. There was also a discussion of a wooden fence along Route 11. Due to the existing topography, it has been determined that the wood fence does not appear to be a viable option to provide the desired screening. Since the April 14th Planning Commission meeting, staff has been made aware that Dominion Power does allow for some plantings within utility easements. The plantings are to be reviewed by Dominion Energy Electric Transmission Rights of Way Management. With that, Mr. Hastings has developed photo simulations per Dominion recommended species list. At the May 5th, 2021 Tourism Corridor Overlay, the board continued the review of the proposed project. The TCO board reviewed the additional photo simulations from Route 11. Additional photo simulations include plantings near the array at maturity and plantings near Route 11 at maturity. The plantings at the array at maturity and with the fence. These additional photo simulations were included in your package. That's the May 12th, 2021 Planning Commission package. At the May 5th, 2021 TCO meeting, there was a consensus of the board that due to the topography of land, the preferred option of the plantings was closer to Route 11. It was also determined that the wood fence does not appear to be a viable option to provide the desired screening. The TCO recommended two options moving forward. The first recommendation would be to keep the proposed plantings underneath the power line and add a single row of Leland cypresses or similar species outside of the utility line easement. The second recommendation was not to plant under the utility easement and have a double row of Leland cypresses or similar species to be planted outside of the utility easement. The TCO board continued its meeting review until May 19th, 2021 at 4 p.m., a week from today. The purpose of the continued meeting was to allow the applicant to produce photo simulations per the two recommendations. And so this is sort of a screenshot. These were of course hot off the press this afternoon. I had shared with the Planning Commission members via email prior to the meeting. But with that, I would like to turn the meeting over. I will stop sharing my screen. And these are the four simulations that I think we're going to focus on this afternoon. But with that, I'd like to stop sharing my screen and promote a few people, I think. Yes. So I'd like to promote Mr. Pat Hastings with Dynamic Energy as a panelist. Now, bear with me here, and Mr. Derek, where'd it go? Sheehan. So I'm gonna promote him to a panelist as well. So Pat and Derek, I believe y'all are both permitted to panelists now. If there's anyone else with your team that you need me to promote, just let me know and I can do that. But with that, can you hear us?
Sure, I can, Chris. Thank you. Can you see Scott Wiley?
Yes, I can see Scott Wiley. Bear with me here. Mr. Wiley, you are now promoted to a panelist as well.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. With that, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the recap of where we're at today. I'll start sharing my screen. I can pull up the visualizations as well, just to talk through them really quick. Okay. We'll start here. So I guess, to start off again, at the same time, I think, Mr. Paxton, I'm not sure if he's still in the room, but addressed, his comments at the beginning of the meeting and the I guess public comments. So I hope everybody in the commission can understand that, we realize that, the beauty of this area and are making a strong commitment to try to work with the county and everybody in addressing those aesthetic concerns, not only from the TCO review meetings, but these meetings as well. So I'll kind of start from, I guess, where we left off with the TCO and the general consensus. Looking at the two options I think that are on the board right now is the first option would be the low grow. I'll pull it up real quick. Sorry. So these Dominion approved low grow species underneath the power lines, as well as a single row of not Leland cypress, but green giant arborvitae behind the bushes. I think kind of the general consensus was that some of these species that are approved by Dominion, or while they may not be a full-time, screening, like during the fall and the winter, that it may lose some leaves, and you may get a little bit of view shed between, as well with the green giants behind. We created an additional visualization with 2 rows of evergreens. And I'll ask Scott to join in here real quick. Scott is the group leader for landscape architecture for the Timmins group. And we were working with the Timmins group. They're obviously helping do the visualizations and pick these species out. They understand what we're trying to accomplish here. And I'll let Scott talk specifically about the species that were picked in this visualization, and how we're trying to create this buffer.
Yeah, thanks, Pat, and we appreciate the opportunity to elaborate on the proposed plans here, and also just applaud the commission for your due diligence here, working back and forth with the applicant. We do a lot of this work across the Commonwealth, and every locality faces a lot of similar challenges, and we've really worked with the local nursery industry and honing in on the plants that we think are the best fit for each application. And that sometimes does vary by locality and area within our hardiness zones in the state. And so for these species that we've chosen, we always prefer to stick with a native plant palette whenever we can. So the 3 species that you're seeing here, just set back beyond the overhead power easement, are a Nellie Stevens holly. That's more indicative of the evergreen in the foreground there to the left. A more straight species, American holly, which is similar to the Nellie Stevens holly, just a slightly different habit and form, and that's more typical of the shrubs shown in the evergreen trees shown in the middle there. And then towards the right, you're seeing plants like a green giant arborvitae, like Pat mentioned. All 3 of those evergreens are very drought resistant, hardy to the area, require very little irrigation other than that first year of planting. Are very pest and disease proof, and are tried and true and available in our industry. And so we think this application is a nice solution to providing the most screening possible for this facility by moving up this double staggered row of evergreens closest to Route 11, and happy to kind of talk through that strategy a little further if there's any specific questions around the plant material or the scheme that we presented here.
I guess my question is, with the 2 simulations, one was low growing. Are you suggesting having both the low grow underneath the power line and this backdrop as well?
Sorry, this is Pat. I think it was 2 different options, right? So I'll go back again one more. And I'll use the same view so we can make comparisons.
Right.
So sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I think I see the difference now. I was looking at them earlier, and then just something you said about it sounded like you were going to do both, that you're proposing a combination of both, but that's not what you're doing. I see the now in this slide, I see the second row. Okay. Forgive my question. It just was a little unclear at just something that I misconstrued you said earlier. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so this would be the, the low grow dominion plants, obviously in the single row of evergreens, but behind it, obviously this simulation here is the two rows, same, this is the same perspective looking back, with the trees at their, closer to their maximum height and fullness. So with a, staggered two row.
And
Obviously,
how
I
long
think,
would it take to get that? I mean, is this 5 years out? Is it 10 years out? Is it a year out? I mean, what's realistic there?
Well, so I'll start with this and I'll let Scott answer the rest of it. The intention is to plant these at least with, at 6 feet already. And Scott, can you comment on, I guess, the growth rate, up and sideways?
Sure. And every plant, based on its characteristics of the soils around it and the amount of water it gets in sunlight, varies slightly in how it grows. But what we're showing here is basically the ultimate maturity. This image is somewhere in the range of a 30-year maturity. It will achieve a very similar effect around 20 years. So it does take some time to get to a level of screening like this. But we didn't want to misrepresent that. This is definitely at maturity.
Which is also about the time you would be decommissioning this, based on what I'm reading, right? 25 to 30 years is the decommissioning time frame.
Well, the life of, I'll put it this way. So the lease that we have on the project is for 25 years. The life of the system itself is not necessarily, there's no exact end date. It's really, is the system still operating appropriately in 30 years, or is it, 32 years or 33? And what are the, advantages of keeping it or not?
And I had a couple of follow-up questions from our last meeting. You all were going to do some research to find out what kind of, if there was going to be some tax benefit to the county residents. Did you guys get an answer to that?
Yeah, Derek, are you still on there? I can't see if he's able to talk.
Yeah, I'm on. Can you repeat the question, please?
Just, we had discussed, or you all had brought up that there might be some tax benefits, to the county residents, that you all may be paying taxes or whatever, that obviously would benefit the county. I'm just wondering if you ever got a clear answer on that.
Yeah, so there's the benefit to the residents of the county is the ability to enroll in the shared solar program. So it's a first come, first served basis, but residents of the county would be able to sign up for this program, receive a share of the solar garden production, which would be applied directly to their electric bill as a bill credit. They would be allotted the size or the portion of the production based on their electric usage history. So, if they typically have about $100 a month electric bill, for example, we would send enough solar credit to provide about $100 worth of credit to their bill. And then in return, they would receive about a 10% discount. So for that $100 worth of credit, they would pay $90 to the solar garden.
Okay, so my question though had to do with the taxes, I guess, on the land. I guess it's in land use right now. So we were just wondering, that was something that you all talked about. You weren't sure if you would have to pay taxes on the land or exactly what your tax role would be.
Yeah, so these projects are tax exempt under Virginia Commonwealth law, and they're typically, what we would do is enter into a pilot agreement with the local municipality for a project like this. In Virginia, it is also not permitted for a county to enter into a pilot agreement with a private entity, as far as we understand. But we have engaged with local law firm that has informed us that there are ways to compensate the county in lieu of a pilot. So I can certainly, I think it's certainly very plausible that the current taxes that are paid on that land, the solar garden would yield a higher reimbursement to the county than what it's currently valued at.
That's not in place, though. That would be something that you guys would work out with this attorney, I guess, and the county.
Yeah, exactly. It would be something that we would have to. There are a couple different ways. One way is through that we looked at with another county is through the PDR program, so a purchase of development rights, or there are other ways, but to preserve, we could preserve kind of the same amount of ag land that's being taken out of production in another place in the county. So I think there's ways to get creative with it. What we've been told is that the kind of statutes that are there were just adopted last July. So there hasn't been a ton of precedents set yet. So I think that there is the ability for us to, kind of work out what's going to be the kind of the best way to make it work for the county and for, for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll just comment. This is Chris Layton, and this is a similar comment to last month. The role, the planning, the role of the board of supervisors will certainly include an economic impact, but the role of the planning commission, primary role of the planning commission is a land use decision, on the actual application. With that being said, I do know that we've obviously had discussions with the Commission of Revenue and other coworkers in the building. And one thing that I've reached out with there, I believe it's called a solar calculator that we've been utilizing a little bit. And the one item that we don't have for the solar calculator, which I talked to Mr. Hastings about, is I believe it's a term called the total capitalized investment. And so we still don't have that. That's one missing link of the solar calculator of multiple different information we put in to get some sort of information out of. So that certainly will be on the forefront of the supervisors, a concern of the supervisors as well.
Sure.
Mr. Hastings, going back to the other simulation with the low growers, I mean, obviously this at maturity is really nice about screening, but we are looking at the short term. What is the age, if you'll go back to I guess it's option 1. What is the maturity? What is that the full maturity there, or will that secondary row grow a little taller? Where are we in?
Yeah. So, and Scott, I'll let you jump in too. I think so. The low growth here, I believe, is at full maturity. The evergreens in the back are not. They're the same evergreens that are in the double row. They're just not showing at their maximum lifetime height here. So we're kind of showing it at you call it a mature plant, but not maximum lifetime growth there.
And Pat, I'll add that some of those species, especially the ones in the foreground, are shown closer to maturity because they have to top out at about 10 feet in height just to be able to live reasonably under that Dominion power line, and so that they don't have to continuously maintain and create an unsightly habit of those trees and just topping of them. So those are growing and showing at about maturity at 10 feet height. And like you said, the ones in the back are technically slightly different species from those shown in the other visualization that you just looked at, because they are in proximity to that overhead power line. And so they would be a little bit shorter and more representative of what you see here. Although I'd also want to point out just one difference in the way these visualizations were done. These were done with Google Street View. And if you've ever seen one of those Street View cars driving down the road, the camera is mounted to the top of the car. And so we are actually above the eye level of most people that would be driving in their own vehicles looking at this facility. So you are actually seeing more panels than you would in your own car. I just wanted to make that stipulation clear, just so everyone understands that these visualizations, while we do the best we can, they could be a little misleading in that way. I think this is worst case scenario in what you're seeing in most of these.
Again, you said at maturity. So what are those bushes? Again, is that 5 years from now? Is it, 30? What are we looking at there?
Those shrubs that are growing under the Dominion easement grow pretty quickly. I think they would be most likely installed at the 36-inch height range, so maybe 3 feet. Those are what you can commonly find in nurseries for those types of species. And they would grow maybe 2 feet a year until they reach about 10 feet where they would max out. So it would reach maturity for those plants pretty quickly. Now they're just not going to be the type of plants that get to be 20 and 30 feet tall because of their proximity to the easement.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, this is Chris Slade. Could you give that same information on the 3 different species of the evergreens, if you will, as far as, obviously we said that the plantings would be 6 feet, a minimum of 6 feet at plantings. And then how about the growth rate per year? Do you have any details on each one as far as the growth rate per year?
Chris, are you talking to the previous visualization that had the 3 species that I discussed?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
If they were planted at 6 feet in height, you could expect a growth of 1 to 2 feet a year for the first several years. And then once, you reach maybe year 5, they're well rooted and well established, and you could achieve slightly higher growth rates, but 1 to 2 feet is a pretty typical growth rate for a newly planted evergreen of that type.
But you said it would take 25 years to get to full maturity. I mean, how tall is that tree going to be if it's growing 1 to 2 feet a year for 25 years? I mean,
So
it seems like it match up there.
Yeah, it does vary a little bit, but the Nellie Stevens holly that I discussed would grow to an ultimate height of 20 to 25 feet. The American holly and the green giant arborvitaes will reach heights of 30 to 50 feet, just depending on the growing conditions and how happy they are. So maturity does vary, but it does take some time to get to that maturity.
So we've got discussion here now, or do we still ask questions? Where are we in this? Or are we ready just for us to discuss now, or just
we're still in the discussion phase. Yes, ma'am.
Right. Well, I mean, just for me, I grew up in Roanoke. There was a recycling plant right on the side of 581 that got put there back in 1980, I think, when I was growing up there, and it's still there, and it looks terrible. And going into that city, I just keep thinking about that. I'm thinking about what the benefits of our community are, and I think, to me, 10% on a power bill is not worth giving up this much beauty when you're coming into our community, which tourism is a huge part of our community. And I just don't think this is the right spot for it. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the way that people going down I-81 are going to see our beautiful, fields turned into a bunch of metal, 29 acres of metal. Not happy about that. I just don't think it's the right spot. And that's just giving you my opinion.
This is Pat, and I can appreciate that. It's the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I get that. It's a beautiful area. I look at this stuff every day and can have a different opinion on it. So I can appreciate that. But like I said in the beginning, I mean, it's not only, the 10% on people's tax bills, it's the landowner himself. So there's definitely, benefits to them. And obviously they're excited to be a part of renewable energy. And, we thought we picked a pretty decent site, given that, we're not in necessarily residential neighborhoods where, people, are looking at it from their backyards every day. The travelers along this corridor, if they're going the speed limit, it's you're going by it pretty quickly. So even with that, and trying to add all this landscaping to buffer that, I think you understand we're trying to take that into account. So I do appreciate and understand where you're coming from there.
Right. Well, we approved one out in, I guess, Goshen, Rockbridge, Baths area, and it's not like you've got hundreds of cars going by it every day. I didn't like it, but, to me, it was less impactful than this one looks like it's going to be. It is across the street from a school. There's a vacant lot or there's vacant land close by that's zoned R1. How big is that parcel, Chris?
There it is. I can tell you for sure. So. Pat, I'm gonna ask you to stop sharing your screen real quick for discussion. So we've got, just while we're pulling it up, we at the very beginning of this process, we did have many phone calls when the ads went out. Certified mail went out to all the direct land adjoiners, posted the property, and did the ads in the newspaper. With that being said, I probably got a dozen phone calls or so on the property, and once I told them what it was and where it was going, distance off the corridor, that type of thing. This is one of the more unusual ones that we have not, until this evening, with the citizen comment period, I had not heard direct opposition to the project. I agree, and I sort of had previously attributed to that just what the conversation just generated was the site selection. You're adjacent to the Alexander Farm that has large holdings on this side of the interstate and the opposite side of the interstate. Back towards town is the Alexander Farm. You're across the street from an elementary school, and then what we're talking about now is the north side of the project, and in that it's an existing previous sawmill, some sawmill activity there in an industrial zone that's adjacent to this property. And then as far as the residential zone property, that is approximately 8 acres that is accessed off of Depot Hill.
Okay.
That'll be right on the interstate.
Right.
And also joins the Interstate 81 as well. 64, 81.
Right. Just thinking about, I'm trying to think about years from now, not today, but if somebody develops that land, we certainly are trying to get more residential, developments and things like that. But just wondered what the opportunity was there for somebody and if they would want to do that if they're looking at 29 acres of.
That property is owned by Fitzgerald. I believe his name is Eugene Fitzgerald, and we have not heard from him. I mean, we certainly don't have any development plans, but he has received 2 certified mails from the county, and we did not hear any concerns or support for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess my question to the commission is, of the buffering plans, which ones seem to have the best benefit if we go ahead with this project? Anybody want to? For me, the first one with the plantings underneath the power line with the back row of the other trees, I think looks more sparse, but I think having driven by that spot many times, I think that 5 to 10 feet is going to buffer a good portion of that, particularly in front of the school, down to where the drive entrance is. I think the main visual impact is going to be as you get closer to the Alexander home, as you go past the little entrance road there. So I don't know if that's going to be enough buffering to not see it at all. I don't think that's going to be a possibility unless we go 25 years out with the plantings that are going to be the 25 to 50 feet tall. But I think the first one would be faster growing. The species that I'm understanding that they're putting on there are faster growers. And so the visual impact would be reduced more quickly.
I think Kimberly was talking last week, though, weren't we, that the 11 is above, so you're going to be above it. So it's going to take some time. I mean, it's going to be out there for a long time because the road is up above even where the plantings would be. So that was her comment last time, I think, was,
Yeah, and that's
even if you plant an 6 foot tall tree, it's going to barely be coming up to where eye level is or road level is.
That would be true down between the driveway and the Alexander home.
Mhm.
That's gonna be true right across from the school.
Right.
Everything, that's a hill and it drops down, all the way down into that hollow where the solar panels will start. To me, you're better off if you're gonna put something in there to screen it, go back off the power line right away, put the taller trees in, go with an 8-foot tree instead of a 6-foot, double planting. And especially once you get a little closer to the Alexander property, I mean, it's all kind of downhill there. If you put 5 foot in there, you'll ride across, you can ride across there in a go-kart and see you cross it. If you're on 11. I mean, I ride by there every day. I grew up there. I mean, I know I see it every day of my life, and I've seen it every day of my life. To me, you do that. You go down to the property that's on the north side, and we need to do something along that property line to, as far as down to the hollow, as far as down to that hollow towards the interstate, heading west towards the interstate, and put a line of some type of tree there that will grow up 12, 14 foot tall. It helps screen some of the residential side, even though there's a sawmill there now, even though there's logs there now, you can still see a lot of that from the Berg, the Fairfield, the little town there. And so it would certainly help screen it as people are coming up US 11, going south. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Interstate's interstate. They're going to 3-lane it eventually someday, so we can plan alongside of it, and they'll have to come back to them and replant. So if they decide they're going to take them, if I'm still alive when it happens, take seriously the rate they widen the interstate. But as far as, we've not had any complaints from anybody but one person. None of the surrounding landowners have complained. Nobody in Fairfield complained. Nobody lives up on the hill behind, up in the subdivision up at the water towers complained, and they're going to be able to look down at it. I mean, we've not necessarily had anybody really that's opposed to the green energy and the solar panels.
Right. And I'm not opposed to green energy either,
So-
but I think we got to look at, cost and benefit, and
If we can get our tax dollars back and they're willing to do something there and make sure that that's happening, Chris.
there's
and
no
that's scheduled in
guarantee.
stone before we get into this thing and approve it all the way. If they're going to be able to do something where we don't lose tax dollars, there will be some benefit to some of the citizens in the county. And yeah, I've said it before when I told Vicky, if there's one person in this room that's got a reason to complain, it would be me. I own property on the east side of US 11, and I'll be looking right down at it when I ride up on my hill, and I don't have a problem. So I'm all game as long as we got good screening along US 11. I'm good. And going down that property line, and like I say, with no complaints from anybody.
We talked about this before. You can say you're going to have a good screening plan. I don't think that's going to screen it. I just don't. And I don't think there's a way to do it out the way that it lays down over the land like that, like
If
over
you don't
the hill.
start over 8-foot trees, you're losing battle.
Right.
So 4 and 6 foot trees are up to 6 foot. To me, that's not going to cut it.
Well, and remember, he said it's going to take 25 years. I mean,
But if you sit there and you take them and you put 8, if they'll grow a foot the first year and 2 the second year and 2 the third year, there's 5 foot, so you're 13 feet. So
that's what I'm
13
saying. The
feet
math didn't really work
13
out.
feet will knock a lot of it down, and they'll grow that fast, and that's a big if. So,
Exactly. I'm saying that doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you say it takes 25 years to maturity, but it's going to grow a foot or 2 a year. I mean, numbers don't work there.
Well, I mean, I'd like to say, I think the company did a good job with the photo simulations, showing us different options. Started with some scattered red buds and other native trees to this, and there's no way that you're going to screen the facility from every vantage point on 11 or 81, and I can care less about 81 view shit from there, but 11, yeah, that's what we need to focus on. And as far as impacting any future residential opportunities, I mean, it's in between 81 and 11, and I'm sure that it's not going to be the next big high-end subdivision that parcel of land. I mean, its best use is is agriculture or this, in my opinion. So I think the company did an adequate job in providing screening. And again, it's going to be impossible to screen from every single vantage point.
I think that the simulations were not genuinely though what's going to be there. I think, we've got to use our own heads here a little bit.
Well, yeah, with the heights. And the future
Yeah, I
growth
mean,
rates.
that's definitely something, it's not going to look like that.
But again, there's no requirement to screen it unless we say, you have to transplant a 25-foot tall tree and do a screen of those.
So which of the screening options is the commission leaning towards? Mr. Lucas, I'm really defer to you since you look at it every day. You like the screening option, is that number 2, if I'm remembering correctly?
1.
Or is it 1?
Number one, where you going back and putting the double row off the Dominion or the power line right away. To me, is going to be the option that's going to probably grow faster and screen it better in the long run. As you're going south off 11, there's a Dominion Power's got a substation, and it's right there at the corner of the Alexander's Orchard and Waterloo. And if anybody remembers, they came in and they planted cedar trees in there on it. And they were small, and I looked at them and I said, well, they might get tall enough where they'll screen it in my lifetime. Well, they have. You can't see that substation now. But now, granted, it's been there for 20 years probably now. But they planted them in there, and it didn't look bad at all. What they screened, they built a berm up and they put the cedar trees on top of them. They did very well. So anything we put in here is long term. And once this thing goes into a solar panel array, I may be wrong, but I don't think it'll ever be out of a solar panel array or some type of solar power. They'll have something in there probably. They'll roll something else in, especially if it's a viable source of energy and it's working at that time, especially with 3-phase power lines and all that. They'll have an investment in at the end that they want to stick with. I could be wrong, but 2 rows off the right of way, 2 rows of trees off the right of way, and I also want to see something going down along the sawmill property, at least over the hill where it'll screen it from 11. That'll knock it visibility down from 11.
Any others? Okay, excuse me.
This is my opinion.
Any other discussion or questions for Mr. Hastings, Mr. Wiley, or Mr. Sheehan?
No, not for me.
All right. If there's no further discussion, we'll call for a question. Is anybody wanting to put a motion forward at this point?
That will be on me, this one.
Oh, you don't want to do it?
No.
Come on. You want any part of it?
I mean, I'm fine with first motion that was given to us, and I don't know how we incorporate your desire to have additional screening on the northern end of the property. Chris, would you have a?
Well, that's, so for discussion purposes, staff has developed the following conditions. I'll just read them all 5 of them, and then we'll sort of backtrack, if you will. So number 1 would be the development. These are proposed draft conditions. Number 1 would be the development of the property 38-10-A for which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with the development plan prepared by Dynamic Energy with the revision dates of September 25th, 2020, and April 7th, 2021, and blank. And I'll get back to that blank here in a second. So the second one, number 2, is a maximum height of the tilt for the solar array shall be 15 feet tall. Number 3, the landscaping shall be maintained in healthy condition for the life of the project. Number 4, acceptance of a decommission agreement, incorporation decommissioning plan dated blank. And that was given a date today of May 12th, 2021 via email. And number 5 is approval contingent on the tourism corridor overlay TCO board approval, VDOT, and erosion and sediment control approvals. So I think the one thing that we're leaning towards here is obviously number 1, and how do we incorporate a proposed landscaping plan, into the conditions themselves. And so one thing, we could get on the same page with of what we want to see in that landscaping, and that's acceptable to Pat and his team, would be you would just be revising that landscaping and putting a new revision date on it. So the new landscaping, from what I'm hearing from this discussion, would be the preferred landscaping was the staggered row, double staggered row, and I would like to nail those species down a little bit more. But the preferred, what we're talking about is a preferred method, is a double row of evergreens, if you will, that is located outside of the utility easement. And then that would also be, and I'm pulling out the plan now, Pat, the latest draft we have, and I'm going to turn to page, and I could pull this up on the screen if needed.
Chris, while you're doing that, with any of the plantings, we're still incorporating the plantings along the interstate as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
That was determined to be adequate at the last meeting, if I'm correct about that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost in the.
Absolutely, yes. And that is shown on the current plan, of course. So with that being said, what we're looking at is landscaping.
What he's proposing, what they already proposed at the April 7th meeting though. So do we need to have a new revision again?
It would be a revision date because that's the way we track it. It would have a new revision date. So
Not the April 7th, what he turned in April 7th.
it would have a revision date of April 7th. It would have that revision date of April 7th, but then it would have a second revision date, a more recent revision date depicting what we're talking about now.
Okay.
Yes. And so I'm on sheet plan C100, the overall landscaping plan. And so and so the interstate has been revised, and we deemed that adequate last month. So now what we're talking about is shifting the landscaping up towards Route 11. And I might, this is going to take some discussion, and it's somewhat unusual to make motions, recommendations for landscaping plans that we have not seen yet, but we have. This is our 3rd month, so we're sounds like we're willing to work with you any way we can with that. But what there was 3 total species y'all were talking about in front, and there were 2 of them, if I recall conversation correctly tonight, there were 2 of them that went to the 30 and 50 range, but there was 1 of them that was smaller than that, or less height. Could you give those again to us?
Yes, I'd be happy to. That was the 3 species were the Nellie Stevens holly, and that is the species that would mature at 20 to 25 feet ultimate height. The second species is just a straight American holly species, and those tend to grow taller, 30 to 50 feet in height. And then the third species is the green giant arborvitae, and that's a 30 to 50 foot high at maturity.
So knowing that now with these 3 different species, would we like to consider all of those, or would you like to drop the Nellie holly? I think it's the 20 to 25 feet.
2 taller ones would be my thing.
Okay.
They'll grow, they'll probably grow faster. I got a feel. Maybe wrong.
And I can clarify too, just as a point of emphasis, the Nellie Stevens holly would start out at a 6 foot height like the other 2 and would grow just about at the same clip as the other 2. It just would top out at maturity a little sooner while the other 2 are still growing. So that's the only caveat.
That's still, you still agree with the
That's fine.
with the 2?
Everybody else? Anybody else got an opinion on that?
Is there are those, thinking of them at maturity and their body width and density down low, is there an advantage to, and I think the density of the screening down low is also going to be important down the road?
Very good question. And the Nellie Stevens holly, the shorter of the three, is actually the one that's going to provide the most round and dense form. So while it's not as tall, it does tend to grow outward much more quickly than the other two species. So that is a consideration, and part of the reason that we've selected it as one of the three options.
Thank you.
Put a row of them in front and a row of tall ones in the back.
Sure. The suggestion, Mr. Lucas has made the suggestion of one row of the smaller plants in front, and then one row staggered, I should say, and then one row of, let's say, the American hollies in the rear. All right, so between the two that grow 30 to 50 feet, are there one of those that grows faster than the other? I guess would be a question I would want to know.
The green giant arborvitae is probably the best option to grow the most quickly. That is quickly becoming the replacement for the typical Leland cypress that you hear about and see so frequently and have seen so much in the past, but the landscape industry is definitely going away from that species for many reasons. So the green giant arborvitae is the new fast growing Leland, if I may.
And are they ice tolerant, ice and or snow tolerant?
They are, due to their qualities that make them a good native species that's very susceptible to all the conditions that we experience in Virginia, from drought to snow and ice and everything in between.
So is that the consensus of the planning commission as far as a double staggered row with the Nellie, and I apologize, I didn't write it down, but is it Nellie Ford holly?
Nellie Stevens.
Nellie Stevens, thank you, Chris. Nellie Stevens holly in front with a second row of green giant staggered appropriately. And when I say staggered appropriate, that would be the overall width that you plant them between the two. So with that, I'd ask for some feedback from the planning commission on that.
Yeah, and I think as you look at the topography, we want faster stuff growing really towards the Alexander, that lower portion. But I like the three species that they've picked just from the visualizations. I don't know a whole lot about them, so I can't speak with any authority. But I'm glad that the Nellie Stevens does provide a greater buffer down low. The density, low density, that was a consideration. For example, like white pines, are great for a while, but then they get, you see under them, they lose their lower branches. And that's not going to be the case in this case. I'm seeing Mr. Wiley nodding his head, so that's, or shaking his head in agreement. So, all right.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm just waiting to see if anybody's willing to put forth a motion right now.
So that
one other thing we want to do in wording, in the wording of location of these, in the wording of location of these plantings, they need to be off the behind the power line right away, but as close to it as possible.
Okay.
Because if not, they'll be halfway down through the field.
Yes.
So you want them as close to and that'll put them as close to US 11 as possible, which means when they get a little height, they'll scream about it.
Okay. And so the comment was, and what I'm trying to do is facilitate this, obviously, and we would not put all of this in the motion, but we would have the revision date with all of these, and then staff would assure that what this discussion is generating is what is shown on the final plan that then is forwarded to the supervisors. So far we're talking about a double row of Nellie Stevens in front and green giant arborvitaes in the rear for the entire length of the frontage of the parcel, excluding the entrance, obviously. And then Mr. Lucas's last comment was they would be planted obviously outside of the utility line easement, but as close as possible to the utility line easement for proper screening due to the elevation. So I think we're on the same page of the frontage. And now I'd like to turn the focus on to the, that would be the western side or the Fairfield side of it, where the zoning and industrial, the industrial zoning and the residential zoning is. And so with that being said, you know, being cognitive of the plan and cognitive availability and cost, would you like to see, or is the applicant and landscaper willing to discuss, or would it be appropriate to have that same landscaping along that side as well? And is that acceptable to Mr. Hastings and the availability of these species?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I mean, I think I understand, and I don't know if I can still share my screen.
You can. I think yes, we can. Yes.
So I think this is the kind of the view that he was talking about as you're driving, you know, up Route 11, having plantings here as well. So you're you know, not only screening along Route 11, but just this view shed from right here. So am I on the same page, I guess, as what we're talking about along the north end of the property?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, I agree that, you know, you're going to be, as you drive up here, you're going to be able to see a little sliver of it. And we'll, you know, adjust the landscape plan to account for that for screening as well. I don't necessarily know how far all the way across. I think you can kind of see the green here. And I don't know how well you guys can see my screen, but I mean, there's a sliver of it I think we're going to be able to, you know, see. So maybe not bringing the tree line entirely all the way down is necessary, but yeah, we'll definitely look and account for that in the updated landscape plan.
200 feet.
What's that, Mr. Lucas? Sorry. To approximately 200 feet along that property line. Okay, along going from Route 11 towards the interstate, approximately 200 feet.
Okay.
And then to be clear, after that 200 feet of this double row Nellie Stevens and green giant arborvitaes, after that 200 feet, it would go back to the original proposed landscaping that was included in the package. Okay. And so I think we're on the same page of what we're expecting the new landscaping plan to be. The only question that I have is the discrepancy on, or not necessarily discrepancy, but the discussion of heights of plantings. And so it's been expressed by the Planning Commission that obviously the larger ones we have would be better buffer from the very beginning. The numbers that y'all have used were I think 4 to 6 feet or 6 feet at plantings. It was preferred to have a larger planted, and I am wondering if it is possible, if the industry provides for a 8 foot or minimum of 6, maximum of 8, or 8 foot plantings at when they are planting.
And I can speak to that generally. While, you know, availability in the nursery industry is actually really poor right now for a lot of these species, not just the ones we're talking about tonight, just in general. There are some industry concerns with just the overall availability for a lot of these projects moving forward. The harder, it does get a little bit more challenging to source larger plant material. So if we do go towards the 8 foot variety, it's going to be a bigger challenge to find that material. I think it can be done, but perhaps the best thing to do is maybe to meet in the middle and consider a 7 to 8 foot range to allow a little bit of flexibility in sourcing, but certainly would be up to further discussion with Pat's team as well.
Do we really want to throw out the native holly at all, just to give the 3 species gives a better texture? But I'll defer to the Planning Commission, as that just from my visualization ideas, having 3 species as opposed to 2 along that gives a little more interesting planting. I wouldn't mind if we went ahead and interspersed some of the native hollies in there on the second row as well.
I agree with Lee. I think, you know, anything We had in one of the drawings or renderings, they showed like some flowering plants or trees or whatever, which I kind of like that. But if we're going to do this, I think you at least need to put another species in there. I think it makes more sense to make it more interesting.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
If that's what it takes. I mean, I'm good with that.
Okay, so what we're talking about now is a single double staggered row. The first row would be the Nellie Stevens hollies, and then the second row would be a mix between American hollies, if I'm getting that correctly, and then the green giant arborvitaes. And so I can certainly work with Pat and Mr. Wiley on that. And so then the next question is going back to this plant species. Is the planning commission is 6 to 7 foot range acceptable to the planning commission? That I need a consensus of the planning commission on that one.
I think just knowing the availability of stock out there right now, I think that's a reasonable compromise. We want as tall as, obviously, in any planting project, you want as mature and large a species or specimen as you can get. But having shot for some other trees, it's hard to find those sort of things at the right height. So I understand what Mr. Wiley is saying.
Gentleman just said, if we would be able to agree to 7 to 8, so I can do the 7 to 8.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and so I think so. So we have a double row of a staggered row of the first row being Nellie Stevens hollies, the second row being mixed with American hollies and green giants, to 7 to 8 feet in plantings along the entire first row of Route 11, 200 feet traveling from Route 11 back towards the interstate. And then it picks up the normal or the originally submitted development plan for the buffering between it and the parcels towards Fairfield. And then, of course, the same plan as shown on the interstate. And so, Mr. Hastings or Mr. Wiling, do you have any questions or concerns or anything that is uncertain at this time on that discussion?
From my perspective, Pat, it's all clear. It's all clear for me.
Yeah, I agree. As long as I think we're in agreement. I don't think that's an issue. I guess my only concern is, and I guess committing fully to is, at the time of construction or when we're actually planting these trees, what's available and having a hard requirement of hey, these things need to be 7 to 8 feet tall, and if the availability is only 6 feet, obviously like we said, we'll try to comply with that. But if that comes up, discussion will be had to have had. So other than that, I think it's agreeable.
So that would be, so let me review the conditions again. It'd be the development of the property 38-10-A for what the application being made should be substantial accordance with the development plan prepared by Dynamic Energy with the revision dates of September 25th, 2020, April 7th, 2021, and blank date. And we're obviously all on the same page of what that newly revised plan will include. And I will share that with the planning commission members as soon as I get it. Number 2, and that will be done prior to the Board of Supervisors public hearing. Obviously, that will have to be included in the Board of Supervisors package. That being the revised landscape plan. Number 2, the maximum height for the tilt array shall be 15 feet. Number 3, landscaping shall be maintained in healthy condition for the life of the project. Number 4, acceptance of the decommissioning agreement and corporation decommissioning plan dated today's date, because I did get Mr. Hastings to put a date on the decommissioning plan that was included in your package, which would be May 12th, 2021. And number 5, contingent approval, approval contingent on the tourism corridor overlay, TCO board approval, VDOT erosion sediment control, and stormwater management approvals. So those
Thank
are
you, Chris.
those are the draft motions that we have discussed to date.
Anybody want to make a motion at this point on from the commission?
I'll make the motion. It's a lot to read. I make a motion that the planning commission recommend to the board of supervisors that the special exception permit for development of a 5 megawatt AC solar project on approximately 40 acres of the Alexander Farm and the Ag and General Uses A2 zoning district for LDR section 603.03-9, identified as tax map number 38-10-A, be approved, subject to receipt of a revised landscaping plan with the following conditions. One, the development of the property 3810A for which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with the development plan prepared by Dynamic Energy with revision dates of September 25th, 2020, April 7th, 2021, and a future date, incorporating all of the changes we talked about this evening. Maximum height of the tilt for the solar array shall be 15 feet. Landscaping shall be maintained in healthy condition for the life of the project. Acceptance of a decommissioning agreement incorporating the decommissioning plan dated May 12th, 2021, and approval contingent on the Tourism Corridor Overlay Board approval and VDOT and erosion and sediment stormwater management approvals.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Me.
Okay, the motion carries 3-1, and will be passed on to the Board of Supervisors at this time. Mr. Hasty, Mr. Wiley, Mr. Sheehan, thank you very much for your time and energy, what you've put into this project. We want to do it right, and so that's why it's slow, but we want to make sure that it's done right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
All right, moving on now to Chaos Mountain Brewing LLC, Joe Halleck, South Lee Highway. There will be a public hearing, application for special exception permit, beverage manufacturing in the general business B1 zoning district. And so staff, and we'll ask you to go ahead and review this project for us, please.
Yes, bear with me. I'm going to share my screen or attempt to share my screen. All right, I think everyone can see that. Mr. Joe Hollick is in attendance tonight representing the project. This is for Chaos Mountain Brewing LLC, an application for a special exception permit for beverage manufacturing in the general business B1 zoning district. To review the area zoning map, the white on this area, very small sliver of white in the upper left-hand corner, is the agricultural and general use district. That's the A2 zone. The dark red, the predominant map in the area, is general business B1, and the pink, sort of the upper left and upper right and upper on the right-hand side of the map to the north and south is zone general agricultural transitional AT zone. The Stonewall Square Lodge and Cottages LLC is parceled, is outlined in orange, is identified as tax map number 106-50-34, and consists of 28.74 acres per tax records. The special exception application itself, Mr. Joe Hollock with Chaos Mountain Brewing LLC has made an application for a special exception permit in order to develop a satellite brewery and tasting room. The current operation is located in Callaway, Virginia. This will be a satellite brewer and tasting room. Per section 605.03-5 of the County of Land Development Regulations, beverage manufacturing is a use by special exception in the B1 zoning district. The manufacturing component of the operation will consist of bringing fermented beer wort to the site and carbonate the wort in order to manufacture and keg the beer itself. The property is owned by Stonewall Lodge and Cottages LLC and is located in the general business zoning district. Again, the property consists of 28.74 acres. However, the satellite brewing and tasting room will only utilize a smaller portion of the property around the existing building. The property also includes a portion of the Natural Bridge Hotel known as Cottage Hill. The current parking plan shows a total of 33 spaces per section 703.03-4, number 3. This would allow for approximately 120 seats inside and outside for patron use. There's a larger parking area in the rear of the proposed satellite brewer and tasting room. However, there's a considerable topography change between the existing building and the larger parking lot in the rear. Staff has discussed possible modifications that improve access to the larger parking lot in the rear. The tourism corridor overlay will be reviewing the proposed exterior improvements at June 2nd, 2021 meeting. The exterior improvements would include modifications to the existing entrance, placement of a cooler building, wall signage, lighting, change of color scheme for the trim, and the addition of an outdoor seating area. For discussion purposes, staff has drafted the following conditions associated that could be associated with the special exception application. Number 1, the development of the property 106-50-34 for which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with schematic plan titled 6387 South Lee Highway and dated May 6, 2021. Number 2, approval contingent upon final TCO board approval, again, the tourism corridor overlay approval, the VDOT approval, health department approval, and ABC licensing. With that, I'd like to turn this portion over of the meeting over to the owner of Chaos Mountain Brewing LLC, Mr. Joe Holland. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If needed, I can bring that schematic plan back up.
One thing I would like to point out before we go any farther, breweries are not regulated by the health department in the state of Virginia. We are only regulated by the Department of Agriculture, and we will not be manufacturing or serving food. So that's just a point I need to bring up. We were actually approached by the Natural Bridge Hotel, and they actually asked us if we would be interested in doing this project with them, which is kind of unusual. It's a really great location. It's got a lot of great visibility. The building is only 1,600 square feet, so it's a limited space. We basically would be manufacturing beer on site. We have to manufacture 20% of what we sell through that location at that site. Originally, the ABC required that you brewed beer on site, but they changed the wording last year to manufacture. So any part of manufacturing, it was allowable for that 20%. It's a tasting room. It's not a restaurant. It's not a bar. And we would be open from noon to 9. And that's it. It's not a late night operation, but we would be open 7 days a week. As far as the exterior of the building is concerned, we have no intention of changing the exterior other than signage. And as Steve mentioned, the color scheme, because we are interested in pursuing historical tax credits. The interior of the building would be completely remodeled, all new plumbing, all new electrical, and all new HVAC. And of course, everything would be handicapped accessible. I actually worked in the industry for 13 years, so I have a little bit of an edge on that myself. Because of the square footage of the building, which is only 1,600 square feet, I don't anticipate an occupancy much higher than 50 on the interior. So the outdoor seating space would be, obviously in season, a huge advantage. Natural Bridge Hotel is actually intending to locate a food truck trailer adjacent to the building. So we would be sharing the outside and inside space with them. They would be serving food through the hotel. They have already discussed with VDOT the parking lot. Right now it has 4 entrances, and most of those entrances are in the middle of the intersection. So VDOT has recommended that they close 3 of those and basically move the entrance north towards the building itself. So there would only be 1 entrance. That would actually be beneficial because closing off those other entrances would provide more space for parking. So it may be possible to get more than 33 spaces. The outside space, we are planning on 24 by 48 foot space. So basically tables and chairs, possibly overhead sunshades,
but they're not a permanent fixture. If not, then we would be using table umbrellas. Any questions?
So are you going to be selling, when you say tasting room, somebody could buy a 6-pack or
Yes.
whatever, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we actually bottle several of our beers, and we do probably have a crowler station, which is a 32-ounce can, so people can, because a lot of the beers we make rotate in and out, and we don't package those, but you can get a can at the brewery. One of the things that we're intending to do, and we've actually brought in the grain to get started with it, is we intend to serve 4 beers that are made with all Virginia ingredients. And we're working with Riverbend Malting out of the southern part of the state. We would have 8 taps, and that would be it. And our current brewery, we have 22. My facility down in Callaway is pretty big. It's 20,000 square feet. So we were bottling today, and we'll be bottling tomorrow.
Do you serve food at that location in
No,
Callaway?
we have food trucks come in there also.
Is there a reason why? I just wonder, because Devil's Backbone used to not have food, and
Yeah.
people would just bring it in, and then suddenly they do have food, and it's very nice not to have to take it in with us.
Well, the thing is that my wife was in the hotel restaurant industry for 27 years, and she said that the last thing she wants to be involved in again is another restaurant.
Okay. All right.
Discretion is the better part of valor.
Mhm. Happy wife, happy life. Okay.
Any questions?
All right, well, if there are no other questions, so I'll bring it back to staff, and then we'll open the public hearing. Chris, are we at that point right now?
Yes, sir. It would be appropriate to open up the public hearing.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
Come on up.
My name is Jim Jones. I'm the park manager at Natural Bridge State Park, and I live and work in Natural Bridge Industrial District. And recently, on April the 7th, the park received a global designation as an international dark sky park. Virginia has 4 state parks. We're the 3rd state park to be designated as such. And out of Virginia, there are 5 total designations, which makes Virginia the highest designated dark sky place east of the Mississippi. And my question or my concern tonight has to do with the lighting, and just the lighting. We manage our lighting to comply with the IDA standards and expectations. And I would just ask that the commission consider that when allowing the lighting here in either the parking lots or on the buildings, to make sure that they fall within at least the requirements in the ordinances that the county has, and try to comply with at least the designations that are put with the IDA. To make now, the lighting that IDA uses provides for safe egress and ingress on the property, and it just has to do with the amount of kelvins that a light emits, and making sure that that keeps under 2700 Kelvin rating. That would be my only request.
Is there a time that lights need to go out to keep that designation for you all?
With the operation that he mentioned, the park is in during the daylight. During the day, during the summer day hours is usually 9 o'clock. It starts getting dark by then, so most of the time we're closing down by then. No.
As long as lights were out by 9 o'clock, you guys are fine, which is their hours anyway. And I'm guessing Natural Bridge has approached them, so they're probably going to be willing to work with you.
Well, this is the first that this gentleman.
Okay.
So no, we haven't had any conversation yet about that.
Okay.
I think he addressed it in this letter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Yes, thank you, sir. And I will mention that just as I can't remember if it was yesterday or today, we had the conversation on lighting and some wall lighting that will have to be modified, and that is purview of the TCO. We do have an outdoor lighting ordinance associated. It is not a full-blown dark sky ordinance by any means, but in my opinion, it is restrictive. It does require certain levels of lights. Once you get over a certain level of light, to be fully shielded and not having direct glare. So that's what I'd like to focus on, because the timing of the lights is only good as the operator, and so you could time the lights to say, oh, all lights have to be turned off at 9 o'clock. Well, then you get into some enforcement issues of, the ability to enforce that ordinance. So they definitely will have to be, all lighting will have to be in compliance with the outdoor lighting regulations. That is, in my opinion, fairly restrictive or has association with the dark sky, I should say.
Okay, continue on with the public hearing. Is there anyone else physically present who would like to speak?
No one else physically present.
Go Chanel.
If anyone would like to speak online, we do have some attendees left. If anyone would like to speak online, please raise your hand now. No one is raising their hand, so let me go to the chat room. We do not have any questions or answers proposed for this particular public hearing. With that, I will turn the floor back over to Chairman McLaughlin.
Okay, so if there are no further comments, then we will close the public hearing at this time and bring it back to the commission. Is there any discussion?
Chris, do we need to add another condition here, or does that number one deal with the lighting issue that we've been discussing?
Let me pull, what does number one say?
Number one says in substantial compliance with the schematic plan titled 6387 Southley Highway dated May 6th.
No, that would not cover. The schematic plan only covers the parking location, the cooler itself, the location of the patio, that type of thing. But it definitely, the approval contingent on final approval of the TCO board, VDOT Health Department, and ABC licensing. And it very well may be appropriate to strike off Health Department in this case. But with that being said, the TCO's purview is definitely the lighting plan itself.
Yes.
So we don't
have
need to
reached
add
out to
anything for that.
we do, there's no need to add anything to make it in compliance with the outdoor lighting regulations of Rockbridge County.
Okay. Call for a motion.
Just a comment on the letter that you submitted about the cooler. Looks like, it was chosen on the roadside because of space limitations, maybe. And you mentioned that you would apply trim or improve the appearance of it. I can see a big cooler, big silver box out in the middle of the side. It would be nice to try to improve the looks of that a bit.
I understand that. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take it's a reefer container, shipping container. And the side facing out towards the patio area and the end facing towards Route 11 will be sided and trimmed and then painted in two different colors. One is a burnt orange, and the other one is like a brick red. So I'm going to trying to match the color of the brick on the building itself, and then the orange would be the same as the trim on the building. So yeah, it will look like a small shed instead of an ugly container sitting on the side of the building. Okay.
So I make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit to develop and operate a satellite brewery and tasting room with beverage manufacturing in the general business B1 zoning district per LDR section 605.03-5 in an existing building located at 6387 Southley Highway, Natural Bridge, Virginia 24578, and identified as tax map number 106-50-34 be approved with the following conditions. 1, the development of the property, tax map number 106-50-34, shall be in substantial compliance with a schematic plan titled 6387 Southley Highway dated May 6, 2021. 2, approval contingent on final approval from the TCO board, VDOT, and the ABC licensing.
You have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, that brings us now to Thunder Bridge Campground LLC on Arnold's Valley Road. We'll open a public hearing shortly. Application for rezoning from Conservation C1 District to the AT, Ag Transitional AT District. So we'll take it over to staff.
Yes, and I'm going to share my screen on this. Bear with me here. For the rezoning portion of we have two different public hearings associated with the Thunder Bridge Campground LLC. The first one is a rezoning application from C1 to the Agricultural Transitional District. And so I am going to share my screen. I'll throw down some stuff here. Bear with me. All right. Thunder Bridge Campground LLC, Mr. James Panabaker and family has made an application for rezoning for conservation in conjunction with the Commonwealth of Virginia, I should say, has made a rezoning from Conservation Zoning District C1 to the Agricultural Transitional, the AT. The purpose of the rezoning is to utilize the property for a campground and a private seasonal camp. The property is owned by the Commonwealth of Virginia State Board of Juvenile Justice, Department of General Services, Bureau of Real Estate Services. I won't bear you with their address. The property was previously utilized as the Natural Bridge Juvenile Detention Center and a campground for the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization. Thunder Ridge Campground LLC is the contract purchaser of the property. The property, identified as 1425 Arnold Valley Road, Natural Bridge Station, Virginia 24576, is on the east and west side of Arnold Valley Road, which is State Route 759 and approximately 0.41 miles south of the intersection of Arnold Valley Road and Back Run Road. Further identified as tax map number 113-A-7 and consists of 99.08 acres. The property is in the Natural Bridge District. Before I go any further, just get you oriented with the property. Again, it is on the east and west side of the road. Going north would be going back towards the Arnold Valley Bridge itself and Wolf Faulkner Highway. Going south would be the intersections of Petite Gap Road, Cave Mountain Lake, and Hoppers Creek Road. And so the property, again, 99.08 acre tract is outlined in orange on this. Per section 601.03 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development, and I quote, "A return of public land or by sale or trade into a private ownership shall cause such lands to revert to the zoning of the surrounding district," end quote. This section of regulation is, in my opinion, this section of regulation is problematic. In this case, the property is surrounded by three different zoning districts: Conservation Zoning District C1 to the east and west, Agricultural Transitional to the north, and the Agricultural General Districts to the south. Due to various zoning district and other current concerns about the automatic conversion, staff has recommended the landowner and the contract purchaser proceed with the rezoning application. With that, I'd like to turn this portion over of the meeting to Mr. James Panabaker, I believe. And this one is certainly not focusing more on the campground itself, but the rezoning with the emphasis, of the rationale for the rezoning is obviously to move forward with the second public hearing for the special exception for the campground and private seasonal camp.
Good evening. Thank you for considering our plans for the former Natural Bridge Juvenile Correction Center, often referred to in our neighborhood as the boys' home. I'm James Panabaker, and I'd like to introduce my wife, Karen, and son, Adam. We live 2 miles from the boys' home, and we'll be doing this together. As Mr. Sladen explained, we're in the process of buying the boys' home from the state. We made our offer back in October and plan to close later this month. We'd like to operate a rustic campground using the facilities that already exist. We'll get into that in more detail if you approve this rezoning application. We have other ideas, such as music and art opportunities, but I think we'll have to come back to you some other time. to talk about those. I'd like to take a moment to explain the name, Thunder Bridge Campground LLC. Our name reflects both history and geography. Note that the B and R in bridge are capitalized, as in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The Civilian Conservation Corps set up a camp on the property and built many of the buildings. Those men published the newsletter called The Bridge News with capital B, capital R. Later, the boys at the boys' home built a log cabin on the property that they called the Bridge Cabin. Again, capital B, capital R. Thunder Ridge is the mountain ridge that rises behind the property. The Commonwealth operated Thunder Ridge High School on the property for the boys. And of course, the Natural Bridge is a nearby landmark. The word bridge also represents a tie between prison life and the rest of society, and between daily life and getaways. So we came up with the name Thunder Bridge Campground LLC. As a first step tonight, we're hoping you'll recommend rezoning the property from C1 to AT. We've been told the property needs to revert to the zoning of the contiguous properties. As Mr. Sladen pointed out, this isn't as quite as easy as it might sound, because the surrounding properties have the 3 different designations. We think AT makes sense because the properties to the north of Petite Gap Road, like our property, are zoned AT. And we also think this would enable us to make the best use of the existing buildings and other facilities. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to field them.
Any questions for Mr. Pennebecker from the commission?
Just a comment. I know the Commonwealth has been trying to sell this for a long time, and whoever bought it, I'm sure would come forward with the same request. So I don't have any concerns with it at all.
I agree. Seems like a good use for the property.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. And so is there anybody physically present who would wish to speak?
We're dropping off pretty quickly here, so there's no one physically present to speak. With that being said, if anyone would like to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand now. Use the raise hand feature. Not seeing any of those. I will check the question and answers. There are no open questions, and there are no chats associated with this application. So give a few more seconds for anyone who wants to make a comment. Seeing none, I will turn the meeting back over to Chairman McLaughlin.
Okay, well, with no further comments, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and bring it back to the Planning Commission for discussion and action.
Reading over the proposal, I mean, to me, it looks like it's a perfect use for the property. I feel like this is definitely something we should be moved forward with. It looks like they've got some, pretty good plans in place for rehabilitating what's there, applying to get it into the, get a historic designation on it. It was the first racially integrated, correctional facility. So that's kind of a neat thing. So anyway, I think it's a good use. So do you have anything? Basically, I just, can I go ahead and make a motion on this so we can get on to hearing about the project? I make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the rezoning of the property consisting of 99.08 acres, more or less, on the east and west side of Arnold's Valley Road, Route 759, and Back Run, Route 781, and then identified as tax map number 113-A-7 from the Conservation C1 zoning district to the Agricultural Transitional AT zoning district be approved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So now we'll move to the second part of this application for them to have a special exception permit for a campground private seasonal camp in the AT zoning.
Yes, sir. Yes, this is a special exception permit to operate a campground slash and seasonal private seasonal camp in the agricultural transitional. Of course, the application is being made by the landowner and in conjunction with Thunder Bridge Campground LLC. To rezone, to review the zoning map, the white is the agricultural transitional, white agricultural general use. The dark red is the the pink is the agricultural transitional zone. The green is the conservation district. And obviously, the approval was just a recommended approval was to change the highlighted, the area outlined in orange, the 99.08 acre tract to the transitional agricultural transitional zone. So per the special exception itself, Thunder Bridge Campground LLC, Mr. James Panabaker and family has made an application for a special exception permit in order to develop a campground and a private seasonal camp. The property is owned by the Commonwealth of Virginia State Board of Juvenile Justice and has been recommended approval from C1 zoning to the agricultural transitional zone. Per section 608B03-8 of the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulations, campgrounds and private seasonal camps are used by special exception in the agricultural transitional district. Thought it'd be beneficial to review the definition and why we're talking about, a campground and a private seasonal camp and why they've been advertised as such. Per section 302.34 of the regulations, a campground shall mean any plot of ground used, maintained, held out to the public wholly or in part as temporary accommodations of tents, expandable camp trailers, travel trailers, converted buses, trucks, or other such devices that may be developed and marketed for camping, whether privately or publicly owned, and whether such use of accommodations is granted for free or for compensation. Then moving on, that's obviously a campground, moving on to the private seasonal camp. Per section 302.159 of the regulations, a private seasonal camp is defined as a building or buildings, structure or structures, temporary or permanent, and related facilities owned and operated by a corporation, association, a group of individuals, or a private individual established for fraternal, social, educational, religious, recreation, or other or cultural enrichment of users. And so what that meant is, we talked about this at the very beginning, and obviously the campground would not allow, the current campground definition would not allow the buildings to be utilized in the same fashion as a private seasonal camp would be. And so that's why it's been advertised and being, portrayed as both a campground and a private seasonal camp. Per the written description of plans, the proposed use would include a rustic campground with up to 50 sites, including 35 tent small campers, 35 tent/small camper sites, 10 dry boondock RV sites, 2 log cabins, 3 240 square foot frame buildings, additionally 10 overnight cottages, 4 barracks for group rentals, and a resident for the camp manager, and several recreational buildings to be used for athletic, exercise activities, arts, crafts, and music. Water, restroom, and shower facilities will be available for campers at the pavilions and at the barracks buildings. The Commonwealth of Virginia is in the process of decommissioning the existing sewer treatment facility. Staff has worked with the Attorney General's office on a single lot subdivision, planning to subdivide a 4.429 acre tract around the existing treatment facility. The plat has not been formally approved or submitted by to the Office of Community Development, where we're currently working on that. The current plan is to transfer the additional 94.615 acres to the LLC and then transfer the 4.429 acres after the treatment facility is decommissioned. Thunder Bridge Campground LLC has worked with a local land surveyor, soil scientist, consultant, and has submitted plans to the health department for drain fields for surveying the property. And the athletic, exercise, arts and craft, and other recreational buildings will be for use of the patrons of the campground. For discussion purposes, and sorry, I skipped this one. I read it, but I skipped this one. This is the general layout of the existing facilities. For discussion purposes, staff has drafted the following conditions that could be associated with the special exception application. Number one, development of the property 113-A-7, for which the application is being made, shall be in a substantial accordance with the schematic plan titled Thunderbridge Campground LLC, which is this plan in front of us. Approval contingent on final approval from VDOT, Building Department, and Health Department approvals. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Mr. Panabaker and family to review details of the project. And if needed, I can keep this. Yeah, absolutely. Let me move this out of the way over to that one, and we can go from there.
Thank you for recommending approval of the rezoning. We're now seeking a special exception to allow us to operate a campground using the existing improvements on the property. This would not be a new use for the property. For many years, the Boys Camp and the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization operated a campground on the back forested area of the property. They called it Camp New Hope. If you Google Camp New Hope, you'll find write-ups from folks who share fond memories of summertime at Camp New Hope. We would like to bring those memories back to life. We plan to offer a rustic campground with up to 50 sites, only 50 sites, 100 acres, but only 50 sites. That's our permanent goal. Unlike most campgrounds these days, we want to offer the quiet privacy of spacious, primitive campsites so campers can choose whether to spend their time by themselves or with other campers. We'll encourage the use of the many activities available in Rockbridge and nearby counties, while we also expect interest in our own historic facilities. They include 2 vintage log cabins, 3 screened overnight shelters, a pavilion with kitchen, dining room, toilets, and showers, 4 barracks buildings, cottages, an obstacle course, ball fields, and a gymnasium. Karen and I are both artists and musicians, so we're especially interested in attracting campers interested in the arts. We'll make studio space available for campers who are artists or musicians. We've applied to the Health Department for approvals for 2 conventional septic fields and plans to soon submit a 3rd application to provide a dump station for a few RVs. We filed a campground plan application with the Health Department, which we've been told is fine. And we discussed with the Office of Drinking Water use of the well that has served the property for many years. We're very excited about the campground and various other possible uses of the property. We want to bring new life to a resource that has lain dormant since the Commonwealth closed the Boys Home 10 years ago. Please recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors. Thank you. Please give me your questions. I could go on forever and ever about this property and things we have in mind, but for now, let's stick to the campground, I guess.
So you have some plans to do the remodeling and all that. Is that something you're going to undertake yourself, or you're going to hire local
We're
people to
planning to do it ourselves, yes.
Okay. Electrical and all
We
that.
will hire, yeah, when we need electric or
Yes.
plumbing.
Right.
Actually, my wife has done a lot of that.
Okay. Good.
In rehabbing, 4 historic homes in the past.
Okay.
So we have some experience there.
And would you be open to working? I know there's always a need in our county to find more fields and for practice fields and things like that. I mean, is that something that is a possibility down the
Sure,
road? I know when I was coaching volleyball, I mean, finding gym space to practice was unbelievable. It's just that,
Sure. We
there's
have
not enough gyms in our community.
the floor in the gym needs some work, but yeah, we'd like to get to that point someday.
Yeah. Okay.
Just had some questions on the, for your 50 campsites, between the rustic and the RV sites. What's existing and what is new? Can you describe
Oh,
it?
okay,
Is the
yeah.
yellow considered new road, new construction?
Can I?
I'm familiar with the property, but I've never been on the Camp New Hope part of it.
I think you got to use the one he has.
Oh, which
Yeah, you
one?
might have to-
Yeah, you have to
This one?
close that, no, the one
that
you
got
have.
up there.
Yeah.
Here,
It says the
It might-
battery's running low.
Right.
Okay. Well, all these buildings are existing. You know that, right?
Mhm.
And there's a listing of all those buildings included in our
Got that.
plan. Of these out going back in the woods, the main building is this, I think it's number 28, 28, isn't it? This is the pavilion. It's just a wonderful building. It's like you used to see in campgrounds, with a large dining room. It has a kitchen. It has 3 showers for men, 3 showers for women, toilets as well, 3 and 2, I think it is. And giant tables. You should see these tables that were pine tables that were made of blocks like this.
Yeah.
Would not want to move them. Okay, there's the pavilion there. Up here, is this showing?
Yep.
Where I'm pointing?
I can
Okay.
see.
Up here, this is the bridge cabin. Down here is what's the parcel cabin, the other log cabin. And then there are of these campsites, gosh, trying to think where the three screened cabins, I believe, are right here and here and here. There's a campsite right down here that's been there for years called the Raindrop Campsite. There's an amphitheater campsite, I believe. I don't have the numbers here. It's somewhere in here. There is the obstacle course is right along here. Someone referred to it the other day as a world-class parkour.
Mhm.
Right here is a climbing wall, and they used to have a zip line. Whoops. Okay. We would like to restore the zip line someday. The tree that it was fastened to fell
Went
over.
away.
So there's the line there, but no, you can't zip on it. Am I leaving out any other existing? Oh, these roads are there, and they've been there for a long time.
So you would just build some rustic campsites along the road.
Yes,
existing
all
road.
these green tent sites
Mhm.
are either, 3 of them relate to the screen shelters. The rest, or existing campsites that were there. There were like 3 or 4 of those, but most of them are new. They're going to be new campsites.
So the entrance would be off Petite Gap Road or Arnold's Valley
We're
Road.
planning to use both. The main entrance would be here, and we haven't exactly figured out how to use this entrance, but we do intend. We'll probably have people coming in, maybe coming in and going out the other.
And what is the season? What would the season be?
Oh, our season. Yes, our season will basically be from when it gets warm, April
Mhm.
through November,
Okay.
and then we're gonna go somewhere, I think, or do some work.
Okay.
I know that the East Fork of Elk Creek floods frequently. Is there any concern about?
How do I keep going? The East Fork. We haven't seen it flood recently, but yes, that you can tell where it has been, where it's come up.
Goes the other way, doesn't it?
But there is a steep bank.
Floods the Forest Service property.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Devil's Marble Yard is just the next property, if you're not familiar, it's the next property east. And also the Glenwood Horse Trail runs just across the creek from us. So, we may be able to do some horse camps since we're right handy to that 100-mile trail. Yeah, thanks.
I think we need to open up the public hearing right now. And if there are no other questions for Mr. Pennebaker at this time, we'll.
Ms. Pennebaker had a comment real quick. If I could get her come up. So
all right.
Before you guys can come up and can't hear on the microphone.
We've lived in Arnold's Valley for 20-some years. We used to live 2 miles south of the boys' home, and now we live 2 miles north of the boys' home. So we have this vested interest in Arnold's Valley. We just love it.
Thank you. Glad to see you all making the investments. It's a beautiful piece of property.
Agreed.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, so we shall go ahead and open up the public meeting and the public hearing. And so staff, is there anybody physically present?
No one is physically present that wishes to speak on it. If there is anyone that would like to speak online, please raise your hand now. Let me know no open questions. And there are no chats, no chats pertaining to this. So again, if you are online and you'd like to speak for this during this public hearing for this application, please raise your hand. Not seeing any, I will turn this portion of the meeting back over to Chairman McLaughlin.
Okay, well, with no further comments, the public hearing is now closed. We'll bring it back for discussion and or action with the Planning Commission. I personally think this is a great project. And I think the Pennebakers are spot on for the use of this property, and I know them to be the right people to carry this off. So I'm all in favor of it.
Chris had one question about the motion. Do we have to have something in there about it being subject to the Board of Supervisors rezoning it?
No, because it's a good point. We usually don't do that. Of course, this application is a contingent upon the successful rezoning application.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
But I might defer to Ms. Huff.
I think the intent is clear, and you've already made a recommendation on the rezoning, but if you'd like to include that,
If it's not necessary, we don't need to add anything to it. Just wanted to make sure I had all the bases covered there. So I will make a motion that the Planning Commission recommended the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit to develop and operate a campground / private seasonal camp in the agricultural transitional AT zone district for LDR section 603B.03-8 on property identified as tax map number 113-A-7 be approved with the following conditions. 1, the development of the property tax map number 113-A-7 shall be in substantial compliance with the schematic plan titled Thunderbridge Campground LLC plan. 2, approval contingent on final approval from VDOT, Building Department, and the Health Department approvals.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Pennebakers, for a great job. And now that brings us to the last item on our agenda right now is starting the discussion for utility scale solar facility ordinance to go ahead and put that into the plan. So Chris, turn it back over to you.
Thank you. And I'm actually appreciate that. I'm actually missing my page 2 of my report in my package. So with that being said, obviously last month's meeting, we received a letter from the local farm bureau that had many different suggestions. Some of them were suggestions, in my opinion, on the taxation of, questions and concerns on the taxation portion of it. And of course, again, that's not our purview. That would be the commissioner of the revenue and the supervisors as far as per project. And then some of it had to do with the Commonwealth of Virginia General Assembly legislation that was recently passed. And so that's really not our purview either. But what is definitely our purview is developing a utility scale solar ordinance. And so just to be clear, obviously, we just went through a special exception process in the agricultural zone. And I said it last time, I'll say it again, I think we will still continue to utilize a special exception process throughout the agricultural zones it would be my recommendation to utilize the special exception process throughout the agricultural zones for large scale solar utilities. And obviously this ordinance would only pertain to large scale or utility scale solar. This does not pertain to, your individual residential uses. We probably have a couple of those a week, if not, one or two a week, several a month that come through on that level. And that's just straight administrative approval of the plan. So I thought it'd be beneficial to run down the existing zoning district and just say where it's permitted and where it's not permitted, and then the uses by special exception. So conservation zoning is not permitted. There is some discussion in the ordinance of water supply buildings, reservoirs, wells, elevated tanks, or other essential public utilities and service structures are a permitted use. Staff feels that this use as listed would not pertain to water. Staff feels that this use as listed would only pertain to water-related facilities. And of course, the conservation zoning district, as we found out tonight, primarily deals with national forest, state forest, Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, which is now Department of Wildlife Resources. Rockbridge County has a very little bit of land in Rockbridge County, and then the city of Lexington, et cetera, is made up of the conservation district, the public lands, if you will. And the A1, A2, and the AT, they are all uses by special exception currently. In the R1, it's not permitted. There's certain public utilities that are permitted in the R1 zoning district, but utility scale solar would not be the same. Same as the case in R2. In the general business zone, it's a use by special exception. And the only zoning district that we have it as a permitted use, bona fide permitted use, would be the industrial zoning district. And so with that being said, there's maybe a few properties that would consider, I think is the right word, to have a solar field in an industrial property, but mostly they're highly visible on public water and public sewer. And so I don't foresee having any of those higher, better developed industrial properties being slated for solar development. With that being said, what I have in your package was many things, and I apologize, my package has gotten disoriented, but I believe we have a adopted ordinance from Augusta County that we provided to the Planning Commission, and an adopted ordinance from Shenandoah County. We are also in the process of looking at other localities, researching other localities and getting multiple different ordinances across the Commonwealth of Virginia. I also know Rockingham Rockingham County has submitted some recommendations to go to the Planning Commission / Board of Supervisors for their consideration. Another thing that I was able to include in your package, two other items I was able to include in your package, was a American Planning Association article written by Daryl Coffey, I believe his name is, and that was pertaining, of course, it was a publication in the APA magazine that was pertaining to utility scale, large scale solar. Also through this process, I've gotten some email correspondence from a gentleman named Jefferson Singleton, and I included that email in entirety to y'all. Mr. Singleton has been a great resource for our office. He has worked for a very long time as I believe it's an engineer for large scale projects, really, I think across the continental United States. With that being said, the purpose of this, I really almost struggled at putting this on the agenda because we had 5 action items and I got the agenda out on Thursday evening. I apologize about that. But I did think it was important enough, obviously, to continue this conversation with the Planning Commission. One suggestion I may have is to create a subcommittee. Once we get all these ordinances, staff's plans moving forward is to obtain more ordinance that are within the Commonwealth of Virginia, sort of highlight what is consistent in those ordinances, and then, as we always do, sort of mold those ordinances something that is unique to Rockbridge County, or ordinance that we feel that would work with Rockbridge County and address some of the concerns that have been raised on solar development in general, some of the concerns that were expressed here tonight on the solar field application that we have currently pending with the supervisors now. But the purpose of this conversation was just to sort of start the conversation, give you all the information that we were able to obtain from the last planning commission to this planning commission, and then just continue and start and continue the discussion.
I think the idea of a small committee, I mean, you all have a lot on your plate. I mean, we certainly could go through all those ordinances and highlight the things that are consistent. A committee could do that and basically bring it back to you in a summary kind of thing, which I'm certainly willing to help with that. So just throwing that out there, that seems like something that anybody could go through those and kind of boil down to the main things that are in all of those.
Sure, I appreciate that. Definitely. And I think our next step would be to obtain these ordinances to get more public feedback on it, and then put all those together and then see what similarities and differences we have in those ordinances. Mr. McLaughlin, we do have many people that have stuck with us through the entire evening. This obviously is not a public hearing, but I did not know if it would be acceptable if anyone did want to make a comment pertaining to the solar ordinance to allow them to raise their hand if they would like to make a comment, to raise their hand and get those comments. And I'm sorry, sir, you're muted.
I think anything we can do to get public input at this point is very important as we move forward. It's slow enough process as it is, but I would love to hear anything from anybody. And I agree with Melissa that I think a subcommittee might be a good route to go to help you and your staff. So let's go ahead and open this up to anybody who wishes to speak.
Yes, we have two that have the hands raised now. I'm gonna just go in the order. The first one is a Bobby Risak, I believe. So I'm gonna allow you to talk. I just push the button and allow you to talk. Mr. Sack, if you're there, can you hear us?
Yeah, thank you. This is Bob Biersack. I'm the Vice President of RAC and the Chairman of the Energy Committee there. There are a number of organizations in the community that would be interested in participating in this effort, I think, and could bring some of their own research and observations to the table, and that would be very helpful. Off the top of your head, you can think of organizations like the Farm Bureau and other groups around the community that would be engaged in this and would be very helpful, I think, to you all. And RAC is certainly one of those organizations. We've been doing our own research in this area for a number of months now, and we would very much be interested in participating in that effort.
Great, we appreciate that offer. Absolutely.
You were number one on my list. So that was coming up with organizations. So thank you, Mr. Biersack. Chris, is there someone else?
There was, but they have lowered their hand. So if there's anyone else that would like to chat or make comments, on this, just let us know. Yes, we do have. I believe it's Mr. Singleton, Jeff Singleton, allowed. I'm going to push the button to allow you to talk. I don't want to say I'm allowing you to talk, but I'm physically pushing the button. With that, Jeff, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Chris. My name is Jeff Shingleton, and I live in Middlebrook. I had a 35-year career designing hardware and developing small and large-scale solar power systems. So I'd be very happy to contribute my knowledge of how these systems have developed and evolved, and what they're approaching now in terms of current state of the art. And so I'd be very happy to consult with or participate with a committee that's going to put together rules or guidelines or regulations for solar farms in Rockbridge County.
All right. Again, we certainly appreciate, I definitely appreciate that the discussion that we've had prior to this meeting, and certainly appreciate your willingness to provide input in that capacity.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shingleton.
Terrific. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so I think just based on what I'm hearing and looking at the time that we've been going tonight, I think that we should go ahead and get together and figure out who should be, how large committee, who should be on a committee, and start to contact people to see who's interested. I don't know what that process would be, Chris, but.
Well, I think what appropriate moving forward, I certainly will reach out to the two that have spoken this evening. I think staff will continue to look at different ordinances, compile different ordinances and continue this discussion next month, provide even additional information of other ordinances this month, and then maybe have an update, reach out to y'all as individuals on the planning commission to see, Melissa Hennis was obviously willing to serve on a committee of that sort. And so I'll reach out to other ones. We could logistically, we could have 2 planning commission members on that committee. 3 is obviously a quorum. And so we can't do that, but logistically we could have 1 more member on the committee. And then I'll certainly reach out to others and see what we think is appropriate as far as the size of the committee, who we want to be involved. I am going to now volunteer Mr. Musso for maybe being on that committee. And this is unusual with that. And I am joking, of course, but I've said this to other people, we working for the county for some time now, we're accustomed to a lot of these special exceptions. We're getting more accustomed to campgrounds, cellular towers, special event venues, those type of things. So we sort of know what to expect, what the rules of engagement are going to be, what the concerns are going to be. But this is a new one for planning staff, for myself. And so, and it's also going to be new for Mr. Musso. So that may work out well. But to continue this meeting, we will add it to the agenda next month, provide y'all even additional information and maybe some recommendations of who could be on that committee type thing.
Great. That's good. All right. Is there any other business that we need to conduct tonight?
Staff does not have any other business for you, sir.
All right. All right. Well, I'll call for the question. Anybody?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much for a job well done tonight. Staff, thank you very much. And we will see you next month. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you all.